Wakey, wakey, dream team. The Rugby World Cup is here. It has been a long time coming, but we are now down to hours until the big dance in France gets underway. A 7-week rugby extravaganza celebrating all things of our beautiful game. And we are extremely excited to be heading out in mere minutes. Thanks to our good friends at Continental Tyres, we're going to be covering every twist and turn. We're going to be right in the middle of the carnage that is set to ensue. And on this week's show,
creating our own carnage.
Hopefully. I mean, yes, wherever you go, there is a fair amount of carnage. So
hope I do not disappoint.
Lock and load. Off we go. On this week's show, we are going to have a little look at the front runners from the Northern Hemisphere. But joining Tinds and I at GBR HQ this week, it's a very warm welcome representing the Blues, the 3-time finalists, the hometown boys. Bonjour and Kayser, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Bonjour, bonjour.
And of the boys in green, it says 7-time quarter-finalists. Not to reiterate the point.
And my stat is one of those. I've contributed one of those quarter-finals.
Well, hold on to it tight.
Good memories.
Is this the time it changes? Shane Horgan, lovely to have you alongside as well. Shouldn't forget, number one side of the world. We are also delighted to be joined by the Scotland head coach Gregor Townsend, fresh out of his welcome ceremony. The first question I'm going to ask you is, as we said, hours to go. How comfortable are you sitting right here, right now, for your boys France?
Comfortable, not
Comfortably,
at all. No. Like, to quote, was it Paul Saki in 2007? I'm buzzing, absolutely buzzing, excited. Look, I covered the warm-up games for French TV, and it was great. It was taster, but there's nothing to it, right? There's guys who've been running around the field for 3 months. First game, out of breath after 50 minutes. You put 40 points or 41 points on Australia, fantastic, but the real shebang starts now. So finally we're at it, it's going to count, it's going to matter. But the excitement is absolutely incredible. I think everybody got a cap ceremony, right? The last weekend, France had 5,000 people. They trained in front of 3,000 people. It's going to be big.
Have you noticed, and I've noticed, how different this French team seem and how comfortable they seem to be with what's going on, what's expected of them. As you said, they've opened up their training grounds. Do they realise they have to embrace where they are? Does that come from the success they had at under-20s, that they've won those World Cups?
It comes from the fuck-ups of 2007, to be fair. Rafael Ibanez was captain in 2007. They locked himself up in Marcoussis, and then first opener against Argentina, shit their pants. It comes from 2015 that I was a part of, where we did nothing. We were in Marcoussis, then we were at the Vale Resort in Wales, and we were just completely isolated. I'm glad you spotted it, because for me, that's their number one strength at the moment. Fabien Galtier just said, look, you're the host nation, it's fantastic, but it also can be a burden. If you don't deliver on the first game, the pressure will rise dramatically. And he said, right, we're going to get used to it straight away. Good example is that they went for a 4-week training camp in Souston in Les Landes, in a high-end sort of a camping site or whatever, like a holiday place, not privatized. There's normal holiday campers everywhere around them. They had breakfast with them. They were forced to have dinner 2 or 3 times, I think, a week as a team. The rest of the time was it was just, live, train, and then live your life. Families were invited. All the guys had a private bungalow. Families coming in and out, kids in and out. I mean, for me, it's completely unheard of. 2015, 3 months of preparation of being on that bloody watt bike every single day, 3,000 meter altitude, all that stuff. We saw families 2.5 days. The boys were completely broken in the head by then. Completely. So embrace the pressure, absolutely. Get used to it now, you might as well, because the opener is going to be ginormous, and then keep a bit of mental freshness with the reality of that we're all human beings, we need families and this and that. So I really agree with you. They're in a really good space because of that.
By the way, if it's about fucking up previous World Cups, we're in great shape.
Okay, which leads on to the question. Ben is sitting there. It's all right now. From an Ireland perspective, world number one.
We've got a few injuries, huh? Don't start blowing the noise. Okay,
I got you. But we'll come back to the detail.
I know the weather's changed here. It's a particularly hot studio, but I'm sweating. My palms are sweating talking about it, and I'm vacillating my opinion, day by day. And I'm actually in quite a good space at the moment.
Okay, good.
I'm more positive about Ireland, and I'm realizing that a lot of the issues that I have are my own issues with previous performances at World Cup as a team, collectively as an individual. And that this Irish setup, shouldn't carry them, and there's no reason for them to carry it in. And if you were
a lot of them were in 2019, so there's
but I think what they've done, and this is sort of leads on to that point. I think if I was to analyse Ireland not being an Irishman, I think they should be in phenomenal shape, right?
Yeah.
Look at the makeup of their team, the experience at World Cups, although sort of maybe a bit mixed, but still experienced. And the one thing I always talk about when I'm talking about World Cups, I always reference your team, 2003, that the different landmarks that you have to hit along the way. So winning a tour in the Southern Hemisphere, Ireland did it. Beating all the Southern Hemisphere teams during the Autumn Internationals, done it. Delivered a Grand Slam in a World Cup year, Ireland have done a decent build-up. Injury profile, 1 injury, 1.5 injuries going into the World Cup. It's set up. Why am I still stressed about us not getting out of this bloody group?
Because you've got some big guns in there, which will come on to.
An unheard of group.
Let's talk Ireland in detail in a few minutes, but let's get into France first of all. Give us a little sense of the excitement. I mean, you've touched on the team, but just give us a sense of the excitement around the country that you are tapping into.
Just plain and simply crazy. Huge amount of expectations. The numbers at the moment, whether it's broadcasting rights, whether it's ticket sales, whether it's attendance of hospitality, whatever it is, that have exceeded expectations. Everything, touch wood, is going well, other than a couple of injuries that we picked up. Whether it's Ntamak or the others, but I was there in Saint-Etienne, and you could not believe that was a warm-up game. People were going bananas at it. And Stade de France against Australia was exactly that. There was absolutely no sense there was a preparation. It was, we can't wait for this to happen. So I hope they're going to host people correctly. I hope they're going to contain this energy and actually fuel it as positive energy. But at the moment, it's exceeding expectations and people can't wait to go. But there's a very big turn Friday night. You lose by 40 and all of a sudden this pressure is raw. Because lose by 40, nothing happens. Technically, you're not dead.
Yep.
But in terms of momentum and pressure, it's a different ball game. The same way, you can't win by 40, otherwise you'll be even more, looked after. You're not favourites because Ireland are the best team in the world, and it's obviously it's given to them. But still, it's the tough one. So just buzzing.
Are you happy about the match they chose? Are you happy?
The opener.
Yeah.
Would you have chosen that if you were coach?
Wow, that's a good question. I don't know. I think you might as well get it out of the way straight away, because
Certainly
again,
lights the fire, doesn't it?
But this
I would rather play my qualification against Italy the last game than to play the All Blacks the last game. If I put it this way, as long as they're both spread apart, I'm happy. As long as they're not back to back.
Because this is goes back to how I feel that they feel comfortable of where they are at the team. Obviously, it's been. You wouldn't have wanted what's happened over the 4 injuries that are potentially up there going into this first game. I think Dante is massive if he misses that game. But I just think it's a super positive story about where France are. I think where their mentality lies. I think they understand everything. They understand how to connect with the fans, as you've just described. They understand how big it is for the country. They're quite comfortable of wearing that on their shoulders. I think, obviously, Ntamak's a loss, but I think Jalibert is a hidden gem that can quite easily carry that team, along with, obviously, Dupont. I'm really sort of excited where the picture they're painting. Now, obviously, that could fall off the window on Friday night, but...
No, but I totally agree with you. The only one where I was a little bit surprised was the reactions to Ntamak's injury. So, look, it's a huge blow. He's a gifted kid. I don't know if you saw the top 14 final, but he pretty much scored the winning try after making 5 consecutive mistakes. And after that game, Hugo Mola said, if we're going to be world champions, going to be with this kid. It was really the golden child. He's going to take us all the way, take a bit of pressure off Antoine Dupont for once. Nobody was speaking about him. The son of Emile, blah, 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 blah. And poor thing, he does his ACL, nothing of a niggle. It's just no fun, right? Yeah, it's a big blow. And then the articles in the press were, who's going to replace him? Is Ramos going to go from fullback to 10? What are you on about? 2 years ago, we were deciding whether Jalibert was meant to start ahead of Ntamak or not. We've got a gifted bloke. And genuinely, the reaction even within the camp was, Dupont was saying, I'm sure he'll step up. So bloody hell, there's no question, around it. So I think that's the only thing that sort of annoyed me a little bit. Dante, if we miss him, obviously it's a huge blow, but hopefully he'll come back. Cyril Bay, huge blow, but hopefully he'll come back. Gelon will take his time, but he'll come back. Willemse, I don't think he'll ever come back. He's out for the whole tournament. But you can make up for it. But this one, there was a question of, is he the man or not? And hallelujah, there was this last game against Australia. Well, I don't know if you saw the game, but the second half, he just dominated.
Yeah.
And he's a brilliant attacker. So if Ntamak has got a bit of Johnny Sexton in him, the execution, the delivery, and if Jalibert's got a bit of Finn Russell in him, that's what he showed in that second half against Australia.
Can I just ask you about Willemse in particular? Because his replacement, who has come in, is a bit of an ugly story around that. How big a story is that in France?
It was nothing. 6 months ago when Bastien Chalureau, second row from Montpellier, left Toulouse in 2020, I think it was, so 3 years ago, after a very dirty story of a night out where he got in a punch-up. He basically really hurt somebody who ends up being a former rugby player that everybody knows in Toulouse, and apparently there was a racist connotation to it. He got trialed and got convicted, admitted the actions, did not admit the racial connotation. Left Toulouse, he's been playing well for Montpellier, got picked up by the French team, blah, 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 blah. What I don't like is that everybody's known about this story for months. It happened 3 years ago, and nobody spoke about it. And now it's come out this week, which is the worst of the worst, with also Thierry Dusautoir saying that he wasn't comfortable with him playing for the French team because he knows the guy with whom it happened. I think he's due to speak today because Emmanuel Macron, the president, came to see them at camp and obviously spoke about it because there's a few politicians that picked it up. Some sort of extreme left-wing politicians saying that's a disgrace and he shouldn't be here. So it's bigger than you would think.
This is a big thing about where the actual eye of the world's media is now finally turned back to the Rugby World Cup. I think, before it's all, but it's, this build-up, especially over here, I know England aren't doing very well, but it's been sort of under the radar. There's been other stuff going on, and you just feel now that
it's the front page journalists.
The eyes are turning to what's going on in Rugby World Cup, and I suppose it's good for it to get out now. You can get sort of battle-hardened you. We talk about England are fully battle-hardened going into this World Cup, but it's probably good that it's happened.
And maybe one of the dangers for France, and I don't see it happening, but it can happen, is how can they be inhibited in their play, right? And I think, this French team over the last, must be 2.5 years, have never been inhibited in their play in a massive way. And all the things that you've spoken about already in the preparation make me think that they won't, but there is a unique pressure that comes with hosting the tournament. There's a unique pressure that comes with thousands and thousands of people at open sessions pre the event. There's a unique pressure that will come with opening the tournament, and then what happens if that result doesn't go the way. So I think it's maybe one of the only factors that can stop this French team from success is inhibiting their play. And can they play like the France that we've seen play over the last 2.5 years?
With that in mind, and forgive the question, but France can be quite erratic in World Cups. Is that a fair comment or not? You think of something like 1991, they had a home quarter final, which they were clearly favourites for and blew against England. The match was really sort of tempestuous, I think I'm right in saying. Something like 2011, where they're absolutely all over the place, they suddenly end up and probably should have won the tournament. And there's a lot that goes in between that. 1999, again, miraculous against the All Blacks and then don't quite turn up the following week. Does this French side feel more kind of in control of that? 2007 is obviously the other one, where you're the home team tournament. You just mentioned it. You blow it on the opening night and then in the third place playoff. Does this team feel more in control than perhaps what's gone before?
Yeah.
And if so, why?
Well, I try to repeat this every time that I come here, but it's a different story now. Where I would not agree with you, Shane, is that they have been put under pressure by Ireland. And it's not because it's just plainly true. We have been dominated and been outplayed by Ireland certain times. But for the last 4 years, if there's one element that has completely changed about this French team is how reliable they are. And the example that I always give you is Antoine Dupont. Everybody speaks about him every weekend, and he gets all the individual recognition. And then they put him captain. I was like, bloody hell, that's enough now, Let him be. And then he delivers. It doesn't seem like there's anything on him. So there's two reasons to that. For one, they're just a different generation, a bit more modern thinking, probably, to be fair to them, probably inspired by also how rugby is done and conducted elsewhere. Inspired by the Jerome Canos in Toulouse, and telling them to chill out and feeding off that new generation and all these guys. But also because the coaching staff with Sean Edwards, with all those guys, is generating this new modern positive energy, less focused on only energy and passion type of rugby. And the reality is that they've managed to deliver this on and on, and week after week they have been delivering. So they are more reliable, they are less erratic, they are less 80% heart, 20% technique. Yeah. The ratio has dropped down significantly. But you didn't mention, we never speak about New Zealand, and I know they got pumped by South Africa a couple of weeks ago. Everybody saw it. It's no spring chickens that are coming around on Friday. So if they turn it on, they can seriously turn it on. So the pressure that you were describing of the crowd is going to be multiplied by 100 by who's in front of them. So that's the reality and the unknown of what's going to happen on Friday. But that's what makes the excitement.
How good is that hacker going to be on Friday? Oh my word!
And the opening ceremony.
And the first Marseillais. That goes up. We'll be in tears.
We were at the Grand Slam game last year, France-England, and I still think that was one of the most spine-tingling nights of atmospheric rugby that I've ever been to. And the lights around the top of the stadium, it was absolutely sensational.
Just on that change, is it too easy to say? I remember when Sean Edwards came into the coaching setup, and I know it was Galtier as well. But do you remember that autumn they came? It was like watching a different team, and they've never looked back since then. And a lot of the stuff that we used to pick out, in a couple of years before, we'd say, listen, this French team is very talented, great players, they're very good in their teams. But look at this guy, he isn't getting up off his feet, he isn't working back. That just changed, and they've never looked back. And everything I think has been built on that bedrock of, amazingly aggressive defence and a super hard work rate. And yes, there have been blips along the way, but generally, the deviation has been very, very high.
Yeah.
I was just looking at some of you look at the poster boys of tournaments past, Sia in 2019, but came through in tournament. He wasn't sort of the guy that everyone had up in lights coming into it. 2015, obviously, Carter and McCaw. 2011, Carter and McCaw. You go back even 2003, and Johnny really struggled with all of that attention. 99 John Eales, 95 Jonah, absolutely unheard of prior to the pool games against Ireland and Wales, and then suddenly he was the king. The difference for Dupont is that he is the face on the Champs-Élysées and throughout the entire country. He looks very comfortable with it. Is that just a...
See how strong he is? Well, he literally throw another World Cup on, then I'll carry that too.
But I know you've touched on it already, but he doesn't seem in any way... It sort of feels like he's born for this moment.
If you wear a yellow dressing gown, mate, you are comfortable.
He can do what he likes.
Yeah.
Born for his moment, definitely not. He comes from a farmer's background. His brother breeds black pigs in Le Gers, so he's a very down-to-earth, super chilled,
part-time. Yeah.
super chilled type of player. I think there's a couple of things. There's a golden generation, so we also have talent to back it up, and I think it's once in a lifetime type of thing. I'm not saying France will dominate for the next 15 years. I genuinely don't believe it. The stars are aligning. It's a bit like Ireland. It's now or never, right? You don't know what's going to be next, and New Zealand will be back, and South Africa will always be there, and even the English someday will be back. You guys will manage.
We definitely won't be doing this.
If you could really
you guys will manage. But no, the reality is that he's also, and I think I've said this to you, there's a unique star-aligned moment in life between this generation of Bourgarit, the replacement hooker, Aldrit, the number 8, Dupont, Anthony Gelon, have played rugby since age 7. When have you heard a team when there's 4 guys, 3 of them could probably be in World 15, that have played together since age 7? It's a touch of from gods. Cyril Bay and Julien Marchand and Aldigueri have been scrummaging together since age 10 in Toulouse. They went through all the ranks together. So that we talk about brotherhood. Sometimes it's not true. I was never best mates with all my teammates, but there was respect and you give for each other. There is a real sense of brotherhood in it. So the reason why Antoine Dupont can go all through this, he doesn't speak that much during the week. Greg Aldrit takes over. Gelon takes over. Gaël Ficou takes over. So he's really surrounded by a spine of lieutenants, that really will support him. And I think that's why they keep him grounded, they keep him where he is, and they protect him a lot.
And the last teams to be like that were ultra successful was the Aussie teams from 91 and 99, where you had 3 and 4 players from a couple of teams playing together, the Randwick guys dominated that, and they played together since they were kids. And there is data that backs up, the most important thing in international teams is how often the different combinations play with each other, more so than how good the individual stats are.
Are you leading that back to Ireland then? So basically learns to play together all the time.
752 times, yeah.
Just before we come on to Ireland, obviously you've mentioned the headlines and the poster boys. Who is the guy in this France squad team who is potentially going to come from outside of the spotlight to be an absolute superstar?
That's a good question. I think Gabin Villiers has got the capacity to really create a bit like a Mac Hansen. He's a really funny character. Also, if one day somebody gives him a mic, he's funny.
Yep.
He's got a different story. You know, 5 years ago he was playing number
we can't
9.
be having French people great at rugby, consistent, and then
He's
somehow
banana.
now being funny.
No. You would love it. Yeah. On that ferry that you guys are going on.
It's not a ferry. It's a cruise.
A cruise.
We're not doing
Sorry.
rowing tours.
No, but he's the guy 5 years ago played number 9 in Federal 1, so 3rd division, got picked up because of playing really well at Hong Kong Sevens.
Yeah.
That's that type of crazy story.
Mega.
Guys that don't care, they've got a bit of that loose mindset. So Gabin Villiers got a capacity to do something crazy. Sekou Makalou will never be the superstar, but he's capable of doing things that nobody else can do on the rugby field. Thibaut Flamand, honestly, I really think he still has a little bit under the belt. That performance he did against England, I reckon he can do it on the top stage.
Yeah.
And that's what Yannick Bru, the performance coach, said after France-England, or England-France. He said if he was wearing a black jersey, everybody would say he's the best lock in the world.
Yeah.
He really has this extra bit of stardust on him.
Another great story.
And another great story. Went through Loughborough University and all that. So I think that will do. That will do. That's enough.
Now for a quick message brought to you by American Express. As a small business owner, we know that you're always trying to manage work with some much needed downtime. Amex understand that getting this balance can be difficult, so we wanted to tell you about American Express business cards and how you can earn points on your business transactions, then use the points on doing more of the things that you enjoy. Take your standard office spend on laptops, online ads or supplies and get points on these transactions and use those points to help you switch off and recharge. Perhaps you're like Tinds and you fancy a new set of golf clubs. Perhaps you're like Hask and you need a new set of turntables, or you could use them to book a once-in-a-lifetime trip that you've been waiting for. For more information, search Amex Business Card. Terms and annual fees apply. 18 plus, subject to status. He's sitting pretty comfy, isn't he?
He likes it, doesn't he? He likes it a lot.
It's only sport, boys.
But I like it.
It's only sport. It's big sport. This is big sport. Which leads us nicely back to Ireland. How are the Palms?
To the number 1 team in the world.
How are the Palms?
Still sweaty. No less sweaty.
Yeah, sweatier.
I hear from Ben.
Yeah.
They do seem set for victory. I have to say that.
Oh, I see. Now you're passing around. Tell us about this, the Ireland squad. So obviously Ireland announced their squad off the back of the Samoa game, which was, a bit squeaky, but that's when you want to be doing those sorts of performances. Everybody obviously gutted for Cian Healy, first of all. Have you pinged him a note and said, no, haven't. No. As an old former Leinster teammate, I just wonder whether...
They're saying that. I probably should have. But it is really disappointing. Listen, he's had such a stellar career. He is... Talk about individuals and... Talk about characters. He's like nobody else. He was a very, very remarkable guy when he came into the squad first, in a kind of a squad of big characters in Leinster. He stood out. A really, really interesting guy, his own man, and a fun character as well. And kind of a little bit out there, but it was what was needed, And I spoke this. I was talking to somebody else about this the other day. You don't need, and I think that the best teams shouldn't all march in a line. It's not what you want. You need to see the character. Of course, you need consistency in training, and you don't want sort of mavericks going off, not respecting team rules. But you certainly just don't want a load of yes men or everyone to be alike in personality. And I love seeing personality come across onto the field, and Cian Healy was that. So it is massively disappointing. He's had a stellar career. There is, I think, a small chance that he could come back at some stage later in the tournament. But I suppose when you look at it, I take Cian aside and look for a broader injury profile. It's not bad for Ireland.
Yeah.
They've got the whole shooting match to choose from. Listen, a little bit of worry at number 2 because I think they're taking a little bit of a roll of the dice there with Dan Sheehan and Kelleher.
Ronan Kelleher.
Sheehan has an injury. He came off. Kelleher again. His injury profile isn't great. Hopefully they'll be all right. But aside from that, Ireland are in good shape. And if you're going to have one injury, apart from maybe we could have taken one in the back row. Aside from that, it's expected.
How are you feeling? Obviously, Johnny Sexton, I thought Ireland did a very good job in terms of putting that to bed in terms of him just getting up there and saying, look,
This is the ban for the behaviour
for
at the
the
European
ban.
Cup final.
Just basically pushing past that and allowing the World Cup to become about the World Cup, not about that. But how do you reintegrate him into the team? I know that he's used to being looked after when he's at Leinster and then playing for Ireland, but obviously that group, you're going in hot. You want all your players not ring rusty. You want them going straight in there. How are they going to manage that? Because also you want to keep him for the whole tournament.
I think that's not a concern in terms of him going back and be able to perform at a high level. He's got vast experience at doing that, and you're right. That's kind of the way the Irish system operates. Now, it's a slightly longer than you would have liked, but you've also got the rest of the team around him. If it was, if the whole team hadn't played in that time, I'd say, this is trouble. It's a potential rustiness, and they're not going to be humming. But he will slot into that very naturally, and as long as everybody else has got the game time, which they have, I feel fairly comfortable about it. The problem is, you point out, Ireland's cadence for this tournament is not ideal. Yeah. So you've got Romania, which, in all respect to Romania, is a gimme. It'll be big points. They'll want Sexton to get some game time in there. They might want everybody to get some game time. But then you've got Tonga, who aren't a gimme by any. Ireland will beat them, but they may take a few hits along the way. Then you go into South Africa, which is a monster game.
Yeah.
Then you go into Scotland, which is a monster game no matter what.
Yeah. And then you're in a quarterfinal.
That's before you even contemplate a quarterfinal. And there's not just a physical toll and an injury toll. There's an emotional toll for Ireland to go through them to try and get into a quarterfinal, and then and beyond. And Ireland have never been in that situation before, where they've had to deliver a massive performances and emotional performances to get their whole way through to a semi-final or a final. So that's a unique position for Ireland, and they don't have the luxury of a sort of a break or a sort of an off week, not just to recharge physically, but actually emotionally. And I know that seems silly, but it's a big thing. It's a very big thing for Ireland. And if Ireland do get to a quarter-final after winning one or two of those games, and however they get through, there will be an emotional expenditure from them. And sorry, and just on that, nothing like if, for example, South Africa do that. They're used to it. There's not the same emotional energy expended. Scotland, yes, but I would say, in all respect to Scotland, if they get into a quarter-final ahead of Ireland or South Africa, I think they get pumped in a quarter-final.
But they've also got South Africa up first, and then they can play their cards, and then they get up again for Ireland. Yeah. It's interesting what you're talking about there, because Ben is obviously saying that
but you're in a really hard group. And you've got a really shit run of games.
Yeah. But they are the number one team.
I'm a bit sweaty now, actually.
I can tell. In terms of, Ben was talking about the fact that this feels a very different France team to the emotional roller coaster of World Cups past. Yeah. How worried are you about history for this Ireland side? I know it's irrelevant, but it's also a factor.
It's not. It's definitely not irrelevant. It's how much you can move beyond it. There is a number of players that crossed over between the last tournament and this, but that can be a positive. So, but if you go all the way back to sort of my team in 2007 and what went on there, of course it shouldn't play any factor in this, but perhaps it does. Or maybe perhaps I think it does and it doesn't. But the proof will be in the pudding over the next few weeks. What is more important, I think, maybe than this kind of historic stress or this national stress that maybe is imbibed into the players, is what they have done up to this point. And where the teams that I played with, we didn't achieve the Grand Slam in advance of the World Cup, or teams that did, they didn't get down and win a tour in New Zealand, as I said at the top of the show. All these different milestones have been hit, and there has to be built-in resilience and confidence off the back of that,
and the general consistency of the level that they play at.
Yeah,
I mean that's the balance that they play with now compared to 4 years ago under Smith. I think he's revolutionised. That's credit to Andy Farrell, Catty, to the whole of the coaching staff. But as you notice, I'll only mention the English ones. But then they turn up week in, week out, and I don't think they're not very flappable. They do the nuts and bolts. They still exit superbly well, but now they've brought in the added bonus of knowing how to use their back line and get the best out of their back lines.
And I think how their forwards and backs interact has changed, and we were for quite a period now we've been decent at doing that, but we've just definitely taken it to another level. And I spoke earlier about this inhibition and what part that will play. That is the biggest factor for Ireland, I think. because Ireland haven't always over the last year delivered their best performances, right? And they've been sort of good enough to get over the line, delivering some.
I was going to ask you, there've been a few of those. In fact, the Samoa game is probably another example.
It hasn't been without, substandard performances in my book. But actually, when they play with the most, lacking inhibition, their top level can be really, really high.
Yeah.
But they need that week after week after week. They don't need it in the first week. They probably won't need it in the second week. But they'll need it in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh if there is one.
Can I ask you about the impact of Andy Farrell and just how you feel he is handling the expectation, the team, what is to come?
It's how he's handling it externally and how he's handling it externally. I think are very different. I'm always uninspired by the way he speaks to the media. He's really flat bat. He doesn't give you anything. He only answers the questions really that he wants to answer, and that's all sort of legitimate because what he does and what he has created within the team is, and we only barely get a glimpse of it, is a remarkably sort of relaxed but I suppose dedicated and honest team performance. He has he's created an environment there. Players are very relaxed. They're able to deliver. They're not inhibited. That at their best, they're not inhibited in what they're doing, and that's something that Ireland have always struggled with. Or when it's come to the crunch. If we look at the Joe Schmidt, the lead up to the last World Cup, a lot of good players and had some decent play beforehand, but they actually were inhibited because I think there was a latent pressure that came with playing for him. Now, Farrell is more than anything, I think, admired by this group of players. He has, without doubt, a charisma about him that is that they've all sort of, not say they've bought into, but they're subject to. So you can definitely see in the way they carry themselves, the way they speak about him, that they have an admiration for him, and that admiration leads to a trust in what he's saying and a comfort in what he's asking you to do, and that is a brilliant trick. That is key because World Cups. And look at these teams. Yes, there's some standout players in different squads, but there's a lot of good players. It's how you get the most of them or the extra bit out of them collectively in a World Cup, and he's been doing that for the team. And you would say kind of the opposite is what's happening for England at the moment. For example, you think that there's players there that are playing below themselves collectively, whereas for Ireland, you think there is players, and I think. Mac Hansen is one of them that you think this guy came from nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, how is he playing at this level? And maybe I'm doing
getting better game by game.
And so maybe I'm doing him a disservice. But nobody else was able to get this level of performance out of him, and he is doing that. And that's he's not the only one in Ireland either. So that's the kind of highest praise I can give for Andy Farrell, because he's surrounded himself by good technicians as well. But most of all, he's created an environment in a international team, which is the most important thing. Players playing at their maximum level because they're comfortable.
Do you think this Ireland side? I sort of feel like we've sort of ridden through the excitement of will they, won't they, history, quarterfinal. I'm now sort of like, actually, this is a hell of an Ireland side. Are we questioning Ireland unnecessarily at this point, or does the pool, as a neutral observer, make you raise an eyebrow for their chances?
I'm not questioning the level of Ireland. They will be there. Now, will they be able to repeat those performances? That's one question, okay? But absolutely will they be there. They're the best team in the world, and there's a reason for it. I don't even think you can start to compare 2019 to 2023. Different gravy. Different CV and different scalps that they have in their bag over those last 4 years. They beat everybody, a bit like France. That's why we're genuinely optimistic. You beat New Zealand, you beat South Africa, you beat Australia, you win the Grand Slam. That's when you're realistically one of the favourites for a World Cup. But now you're totally right, and he's not hiding behind excuses. Just there's a reality of a calendar. It's bloody tough to play South Africa, Scotland, or Tonga and Scotland. It is very, very complicated to get to a World Cup. Yes, but there's another argument that I think Andy Farrell will relish at is knock all of them. Last semi-final, final is half as easy.
Yeah.
No disrespect to anybody else, but that's a reality.
Even with how hard the schedule is, I was worried about, what happens if injury goes. Out your 6 props, you've got 4 proper good ones. You've got a couple of experienced ones coming in. Your hookers, I know injury is not ideal right now, but both of them proper quality. Back row,
Yeah.
sensational. So you have the depth.
Second rows, you
Second
said as well.
rows.
You've got plenty
second
of
rows
options.
ridiculous.
Is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You could pick any of them.
Yeah.
So the depth, the strength that you have in depth for those games that are going to be physical and you might get knocked around a bit, you are comfortable that you know you can actually rotate.
And listen, I think Ireland will come out of the group. I'm very comfortable in saying that. I think. No,
hang on.
Yeah, exactly. I think they will come out of the group, and then it's almost a question. I think this is almost across the board as well. It's reassessing what everything looks like. What's the landscape in the World Cup
You're
when
absolutely
we
right.
get to out of the group? And then, as you say, it could be like in a very nice position going into what would be a very difficult quarterfinal, no matter what. But you get through that. And then, I know it's tried to say it's all on, but it's really all
Yes.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You've been on a hell of a journey with Ireland over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Sum up the chances of this
I would feel it. I've been on an honest journey. I didn't want to say that I was right in 2019, but I was. But my issue with Ireland going into 2019, even though they were close to number one in the world, if not number one in the world again, was with the idea that if someone figured out how to beat them, because they did play so they were so not stat based, but they were so rigid to what they did. It was always playing for pressure and penalties in the right place. Then you knew what was coming. Whereas now the balance between what they do, the pace that they do it has lifted. I think Gibson Park plays a massive role within that in terms of what he brings to the team. And now they have a balance where you see the best out of world-class players like Ringrose, whether James Lowe on the wing, whoever it might be, and that is why they're number one, because then they still have that consistency level and they protect their ends like they used to do, but then they've got a different level of attack, a different variance of attack, and they do change it. And that is why they are so good. They're studious about who they're playing and figure out plans to win, and then they're unbelievable at executing it. Plus, they then have X factor all across the field. And
Hugo Keenan, we haven't even mentioned.
Yeah, we haven't
scored
met Hugo Keenan, and that is why they should be world number one. And
Well, the other thing, there's a genuine thing.
Tyndall speaking
I think
from the heart.
I think there's a thing across the board that Ireland being the world number one doesn't really sit well with anyone. I'm including myself here. That's it, because it's literally, and especially if you won a World Cup, it's like, well, how have you won the World Cup, lads? That is always there. And Ireland also haven't won a lot of Grand Slams in their time, but we're starting to rectify that now. So they were never, I suppose, it was an issue that we had to get over when we first were, and I was coming from Ireland in the 90s, where it was like a disaster, an absolute disaster. So we had to sort of get those shackles off and go, actually, we can compete. And that's been built on and built on and built on to the situation where they are now, that they have, Ireland have been competitive for a long time, almost 20 years in the Six Nations, but that's never happened at the World Cup. So it's like everybody still goes, well, hang on a second, is this real? And it'll only crystallise as being real if Ireland deliver in the World Cup. Now, you don't have to win a World Cup, and Ireland mightn't win a World Cup, but it'll still feel uncomfortable for Ireland to be world number one until they get to either a semi-final or a final of a World Cup.
I want to ask both of you this question, and you are not allowed to say we're taking it one game at a time and we haven't thought that far ahead. And if on the 28th of October, 2023, the full-time score is Argentina 12, Ireland 19, what will Dublin, Ireland, the Emerald Isle be like?
I actually got a little shiver there when
There
you
you
said
are,
that.
you see,
Yeah, a
little
little
poet.
shiver. I don't know.
Can you imagine what it would mean for your country?
It would be properly remarkable, and Ireland have had this success with rugby over the last number of years, but there is nothing to touch it, and I don't think we'd have to wait that long to have experienced the feeling. Ireland are primed. The whole of the country is primed, and expectations are off the charts. They are ridiculous in Ireland, and I actually think even in France they did an open day the other day. There was 12,000 people out. 12,000 people. Like, I couldn't tell you the many games I haven't played. And I was even out of training. So the expectations are exceptionally high. This team is really well liked and well regarded. So they are, and Ireland wants to get behind. They want to have a World Cup to follow. And we don't, have, with a few exceptions, we are not on an international stage at the very top level very, very often. and this is it. And if we get into the quarterfinal and there's a chance to get into a semi and then into a final, it would be remarkable. It would be, it would be part of the fabric and the history of the country, like no other probably nation that could achieve it. I really think that.
Let's hope it's more Ray Houghton than Roy Keane and more Big Jack than Mick McCarthy. I think Ireland are primed. Okay, so your score is Australia 19, France 28. Full-time hooter goes, and Dupont hoists the ball into the late Parisian night.
Personally, I'll be on comms, and I hope that I won't be tearing up so much that I can still pronounce a few words. The reality, without even going too deep, is that I think genuinely the morale for this World Cup is sensational, but I think the morale of France as a country is relatively low.
Yeah.
I think the last 4 years, 5, 6 years, for everyone, the last 3 years have been complicated. But don't forget that France were on the verge of almost like a civil war with the yellow vests 4 or 5 years ago. The whole pension thing was a disaster. There's a lot of pissed off people about society in France. There's a lot of, the politics are weird, with some really extremes either on the left or on the right that are rising, and look, we don't deserve it more than anybody else. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it would be obviously a moment to unite a country in the most beautiful way, and I think they've been soaking up this pressure. Famille Galtier from day one, January 2020, said people are sitting in their sofas. They are not allowed outside their flats. You are playing rugby. Deliver happiness to them. That really has been a message. You're playing rugby. Have fun, put a smile on people's faces. So I think it would be a tremendous way of uniting the country again, the same way that the football in 1998 was, where they wanted Zinedine Zidane to be president. And for the anecdote, Zidane did a very famous advertisement for mineral water Volvic, and he always says, it's like his preparation before a game. He says, left sock, always. First I put up the left socks, then I put my laces on, whatever. And Antoine Dupont just signed a contract and he does the same thing.
No.
He's like, left sock, I put it up, always. And Zidane is tweeting stuff saying, well done, Antoine, go for it. So it's bedtime. So they could be, the dream would be, everybody's crying, everybody's hugging and kissing each other, blowing it out of proportion like we like to do, smoke a pack of fags each, and drink some wine.
And then a bellow of smoke.
and then Antoine Dupont walks on a winning bus down the Champs-Élysées, everybody's crying, is screaming, Toto Dupont president, Toto Dupont president.
Columbus for president.
In his yellow velour.
That will not happen. However amount of wine, that will not happen.
You never know. What I love is we've sat here, it's been absolutely fascinating for an hour or so. We're going to shake the snow globe, and we're going to be looking at a completely different landscape come Monday, with All Blacks having beaten France, England having put 30 on Argentina, Scotland having done with the box, Ireland having scraped past Romania, two injuries and a red card. That's the beauty of it. That's what it's all about.
Can we change the predictions next week then?
We can go wherever we like.
Thank you.
We just delete.
Just because it's a mugs game, the winner will be
France.
South Africa.
I'm going who I want to win, France.
New Zealand.
Whoa.
Only because no one else has said it.
No.
Yeah.
History has a wonderful way of repeating itself. Enjoy. Have an amazing tournament. I hope you get some sleep at some point. I doubt you will, but enjoy every minute of it. Have a lot of fun popping back and forth from London to Dublin. Hopefully see you out in Paris for the big one. Hold on tight. Thank you very much indeed, fellas. I tell you what I'm going to do. To mark your cards, World Cup final is obviously 28th of October. 2 days later, we are heading out across the UK on a 17-night epic theatre tour. Who will we be celebrating? We shall see. But from Plymouth in the southwest to Edinburgh in Scotland, this will make for a great early Christmas present for someone. So go and get your tickets now at cuffandtaylor.com. We promise you a fabulous night out, celebrating the great and the good, commiserating perhaps some of the bad. The website has the full list of venues. There will definitely be one near you. It is a World Cup after party, so everything we can't tell you about on the podcast, we will be saving up to tell you about then. Let's head over to France now, where Gregor Townsend has very kindly taken a bit of time out of his day to have a bit of a chat with us. First things first, how was the welcome ceremony? We were just saying, your boys looked unbelievably slick treading into the to the ceremony itself. We like the white pumps, we like the open neck shirts, some Italian model flavours coming through from the boys. Who's been dressing them?
Our team manager, David Edge, has has got us dressed well. Linen suits, white trainers. But it was very hot today. There was a few sweaty shirts.
Right.
Underneath the suit jackets.
It looked fantastic. How are you? How has the welcome been? And how nice is it that we are now almost ready to go? How good are you feeling as a squad?
Yeah, we're feeling really good with where we are with our game. We've enjoyed the last 3 months of training, spending time in each other's company. We've not trained yet in France, so we're going to do that tomorrow. And we've got to adjust to the heat. It is definitely hotter than when we were here for our game against France 3 weeks ago. And it will be a factor this weekend. But no, we can't wait to get started.
Do you come into this, without doubt, I know I hate the pool of death, but without doubt it is that. Do you come in with just... It is what it is. All we've got to do is stick to who we are as a team, which, I've said for the last couple of years is one of the only teams I buy a ticket to watch. Is it hard to stick to that without thinking, or without targeting games, or are you just going to go, right, we are what we are, let's see where the cards fall?
Well, when you've got the World Champions as your first game, that narrows the focus. So we're not looking past that. And given how well they played against New Zealand a week ago, we know that it's a big challenge for us in our first match, but it's also a big opportunity. Like the expectation, I'd imagine, is on South Africa and Ireland to get through the pool. We have our own expectations, but we know we've got nothing to lose. We've got a game that can cause teams problems, but we also know we have to play close to our best to win against South Africa, and when we play other teams, in particular Ireland, we've got to deliver our best performance if we're getting out of this pool. But we've known that for a while, and that's all we've been working towards.
Can you share those expectations? I'm fascinated to know what you are saying to your team. I mean, this is one of the best Scotland sides we've seen in years. What are the internal expectations for you heading into this tournament?
Well, we'd only talk about winning. The job of the coach at the beginning of the week is to sell and influence the team about how we win. And you have evidence from recent games. You have evidence from how your game plan can work against a certain opposition. And also you don't want to spend too much talking about the opposition, about how to beat them. It's about how we get our game out, and we believe our game can open up opportunities against any team in the world. So our expectations are about delivering our game, about being better for longer in the game than we have been in these warm-up matches. And there is a feeling that we're building towards that for sure.
Do you like how, even though it's a tough pool, do you like how your games have been planned out? I mean, you look at Ireland's game. They don't really get to break or to rest or to play what is perceived as a lesser nation, whether it be Tonga or Romania. Whereas you obviously go bang straight in with SA. Then you've got ultimately a couple of weeks to patch people up that might need it with Tonga and Romania in the middle. Then you'll have the last game knowing exactly where you are, what you need to do. Do you feel that suits you in some ways in terms of giving you the best insight to what needs to happen to get out of it?
Who knows? If you ask me in 4 weeks' time, then look, it is what it is. We know we've got a very tough opening game, and we're in a very tough pool, and we've been planning towards that for the last 2 or 3 years. So a different format you just have to adapt. There's benefits to building in towards the perceived bigger games of the pool, but there's benefits to starting with having to play your best to win.
Can I ask you a question? You won't mind me asking it, and you can answer it however you like. I mean, it is appeared just watching from the outside in that there's a bigger smile on your face, certainly in the last year, 18 months or so. I may have that completely wrong, but that's a perception. World Cup time comes around and everyone has their 2p in their column. I'm not sure if you've seen Gordon Reid in the Telegraph of Times, I think it was, who was commenting on 4 years ago on you. He said he let his emotions run high and that did affect the players. He went on to say a whole lot of other things. I don't necessarily want to ask you your reaction to that, but do you feel a very different coach 4 years on from Japan 2019 to where you sit right here, right now?
I'm definitely enjoying the job, but it's more than just the job. I'm enjoying working with the coaching staff, the wider management. We've got a brilliant dynamic. We have a lot of laughs. I love working with this group of players. The quality they're delivering on the field, who they are as people off the field. So that makes the job more enjoyable. But whether you enjoy the job or not, that's not that irrelevant. You've got a massive responsibility, and it's a huge privilege being in it. And sometimes you're not going to enjoy it. Sometimes you're going to have things that have happened that you have to deal with, defeats, other things that are part and parcel of working in sport. So, yeah, I'm loving it. And maybe at the start of the Six Nations, the reality was that I might not be in this job for very long, or after the Six Nations, after the World Cup. So I did do a lot of reflecting during that period around what this job means to me, and means to me in my life, and it gives me a huge amount of purpose. But it's great that you get the joy out of it as well, which I've had the last few months.
Long may that joy continue. The other thing I wanted to ask you is having played quite a bit of rugby in France during your playing days, does that give you any little help or advantage? I mean, obviously you can order your croissants in the morning in fluent French, but does it give you any insight into what is to come that might prove useful down the line?
Probably not. It means that press conferences are tougher because yesterday a couple of French journalists just cracked on in French saying, yeah, you speak fluent French, so we'll just ask you in French. And I'm sure my answers were not that great.
Have you still got a dusty French dictionary in the pocket somewhere? Are you pretty good?
6 months ago, when we came out in a recce to finalise our hotels, I said, right, I've got 6 months now to just freshen up my French and download the latest apps. And they were downloaded, but they weren't used. But
right.
Sounds very similar to Alex.
I've done exactly my Duolingo. I've had daily notifications on Duolingo, and I haven't clocked in once, which is very frustrating.
But can you explain to us, having had that experience in France, what do you expect the country? What sort of performance do you expect the fans and the cities and the stadiums to deliver to the teams that are playing? I know obviously it could really balance on what happens in that first game, but are you expecting a full French flair support behind the fans?
Yeah, 100%. It'll be the best World Cup for the fan experience. I was here. I wasn't coaching. I wasn't playing in 2007. And I did go to a few games as a supporter, and the atmospheres were great. France hosts a brilliant, whether it's football or rugby, it hosts a brilliant World Cup. So the stadiums are brilliant. But what they've done just in the last 12 months, and we experienced it this year at Stade de France during the Six Nations. I've seen it and other French internationals and women's internationals, and also top 14. They rev up the crowd with music, with interaction, colour, with flags, and they're ready to go about 90 minutes to 60 minutes before kickoff. And we got to experience that at Saint Etienne 3 weeks ago, which was only 42,000, I think, at the game, but it felt like double that amount with the noise that came out. And I believe that'll be the case for all matches, not just the French games. And people are going there to obviously support their countries, their home nation. There'll be a lot of neutrals, French, going to the game, and they'll be behind it. But I just feel that the way that the experience is created around the supporter is at a high level here in France, and we'll see that over the next few weeks.
I know how big an emphasis you put on the team, but we've spent this show talking about some of the sort of talisman, and I do want to just ask you about Finn, who obviously, if he goes well, you're going to go well. He obviously knows the French rugby landscape as well. Is he as calm and relaxed as ever? Is he loving every minute of it? Is he?
I imagine disturbingly relaxed.
Yeah, exactly. Give us a little sense of the Scotland team room and the man at the helm.
Well, he's incredibly focused as well as incredibly calm, if you can get both them together. So he switches on really quickly to a rugby question, to something he sees in a team meeting, to a discussion around what we might do tactically this week. He gets in the moment really quickly. He's got an incredible rugby brain. He relaxes others around him by the way he is on the field, through his communication, but also being able to be calm in front of a defensive pressure or after an error. He's an outstanding connector as well off the field, bringing in players around him, scrum half, centres, to have informal conversations as well as others in the group. So, yeah, he's in a brilliant place physically and in terms of mentally, the focus on delivering his best rugby, but also in terms of what he is for our team as a leader, someone that will bring other people with him.
You mentioned the fact you've had a lot of laughs as well. It's a long old road, this World Cup, particularly if you go deep into it. Can you shed a little insight on who are the real energy givers inside that team room? Who are the ones that are in charge of the music, the team social, the court sessions, whatever it might be, if that's even a thing in professional rugby? But where are you getting real energy from within your squad?
Well, Finn used to be in charge of the music. I've not actually heard them as much with the speakers. Used to be a lot of French rap that would get played.
Niche, but we love it.
Very niche. That's very niche.
Yes. Pierce Gooman is definitely an energy giver. And we have once a week, we have an old school gathering. Not with alcohol, but the same old school principles that you would have on tours. So there's a core session. There's little sketches, little competitions, and our two most recent judges in the court session are Pierce Gooman and Dave Cherry. So they're very good at lifting the mood.
Good, in safe hands. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was the sort of the level of expectation and anticipation. So I walked this morning, southwest London, and in a half an hour walk, I think I saw 4 people commuting in a Scotland jumper, which I don't think I've ever seen before, one on a bike. And Tinds and I were chatting earlier on, and I said to you, look, if it doesn't happen for England, who is the team that you will fall in behind? I think he's got to curry a bit of favour with the mother-in-law, but he went Scotland. And it does feel like there is a real tide of goodwill behind your team right now. Are you sensing that from back home? What sort of a send-off, the levels of expectation and messages are you getting from Scotland supporters?
Yeah, we are sensing the countries behind us, and we've felt that not just in these 4 warm-up games we played, but throughout the Six Nations. And we see it when we arrive at games on the bus, 2 hours, an hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours before a game. Thousands of supporters are waiting for us, and it's the same bus that comes in every game, and the players just get off the bus. But it's a moment of connection that the players love and our supporters seem to love. Then you sense it during the game with the way the noise levels help our momentum, and also you see it after the game. Supporters that wait for a couple hours after the game just to get selfies and show that they're behind the team.
Gregor, just give us a little insight. With 10 minutes to go until the teams run out, you take on world champions in your opener. What will you say to your men?
10 minutes to go, 0.
15, 20, half an hour.
How does the dynamic work? When is your last sort of interaction before you leave them to their own devices?
90 minutes before. So last time I'll speak to them formally will be when we arrive at the ground. Usually, I like to speak to them on the field, so we'll go out to centre field. Sometimes I'll do it in the changing room, but after that, it's a player's game. Now, every now and again, whether it's me or one of the coaches, we'll want to say something to them in the warm-up if we sense there's too much emotion or something's not right. We'll come in then. But my mind, although we're a week away from the game, I'm sure what I'll be talking about is that we believe in this group, that this is just another game for us. Bringing the emotion down to a level that we're able to deliver a game will be important, because there'll be so much emotion built up, not just in the time we've arrived at the stadium, but over the last 4 years. So it's important that we just believe in who we are and believe in the game that we know can trouble any team in the world.
I'm genuinely really, really excited for you. And I think from all of us, we just hope it goes exactly as you want it to. Thank you so much for your time, Gregor. The very best of luck to you and your men. And we'll hope to catch up much later in the tournament. Good on you.
Thanks, Gregor.
Thank you, guys.
Right, we have got a new predictor game for you to play during this year's World Cup. Head to superbrew.com/GBR to get involved. This weekend, we have got France against New Zealand. We have got England against Argentina. We have got Wales, Fiji, and Scotland against South Africa. Remember Mystic Mike? Well, he is back once again, like the Renegade Master. Who is getting your backing?
Terrible Mystic Mike. He's not very mystic, this
No,
Mike.
he's not. He's
I don't know what
something other, Mike.
Yeah.
Come back to you on that.
So,
France, New Zealand.
France, New Zealand.
Please.
Start us off. I am going with France to win this one. Basically, I think home World Cup, I feel the way that they've gone into this World Cup, they've been very open, they've been very upfront. I feel they're going to harness that electric atmosphere we experienced in the Six Nations last year, and they're going to use it for a positive. And I think they've picked this game. So you can't pick it and then not go and deliver.
Yep.
Yes, they've been dealt a few injury blows, but I think they're going to rise above. And like a pheasant from a flame. Unfortunately, there's no pheasant, no flame in this one. I'm just going to pick France.
France in the opener. Okay, head or heart? England, Argentina.
Head and heart.
Head and heart.
I think
Bookies have got Argentina.
Yes, they do. So both the France and New Zealand game, they're both a point.
Okay.
So they can't really call it. And I think England have ridden a storm and they're going to celebrate a sunshine.
Oh, I like what you've done there.
I know you thought you would.
Ka-ching.
So I think England, it's their World Cup final. They have to go and provide a performance that epitomises what every fan wants it to be and what they want to be, and show what they are as a group. So it has to be England.
Wales, Fiji. Dun, dun, dun.
So on this one, Wales are still the favourites, only by 5. Now, my issue with this is I'm not sure Wales have enough firepower.
Okay.
Whereas I'm very buoyed by the fact that Fiji's scrum was so solid, their exit game was so good against England, and they have game breakers all over the place. And when they line break, obviously there was one disallowed against England, they score. So I think that Fiji might have too much firepower for Wales, and I'm going with Fiji.
Woof. Scotland, why did I say that? Scotland against South Africa.
Why did you go woof?
I don't know.
No one knows.
Keep moving on. Scotland against South Africa. Surely it's Boca.
Right. So the bookies have...
You're not. You're not going to,
The bookies have South Africa as minus 11.
Wow.
So they're giving Scotland an 11-point head start. I would bite your arm off for that if I was a Scotland fan. Now, no one's going to believe me, and I'm going to get so much pelters from... It's so easy to say South Africa are going to win this.
You're not going to. You are.
But I'm not going to do that.
You're not going
to go. This is the game, I think, that could really set...
Have you got lunch with the mother-in-law on Sunday?
I think this could set the Rugby World Cup off. Is I feel that if Finn Russell is on fine form, Tupolotto outside him,
Hugh Jones,
then you put the big Mac de Swerver and Stein, and you allow him to play in their defensive line, because that is what he's going to have to do, and he's going to feel comfortable there. But the beautiful thing about Finn Russell is he is comfortable there. And I feel he is the guy to unpick them. He'll play balls behind them. He'll play balls over the top of them. He'll crossfield kick. I think...
You're going to do it, aren't you?
Okay. I think Scotland are going to edge this.
So Scotland will beat the world champions world champions South Africa, who've come straight off the back of thumping New Zealand.
Yep.
In their heaviest ever win.
Yep.
Amazing.
It could completely go the other way.
It could. Yes, it could.
This is where Mystic Mike goes from left field.
He plays with his balls out, Mystic Mike, doesn't he?
Well,
win or bust.
If you saw them, you would too.
Unbelievable. So, thank you for that. France, England, Fiji, and Scotland. You heard it here first. Right, we're going to have some more England, Scotland, Wales content dropping on Saturday. You will not want to miss that. Trust me, that is a big one. But, of course, with no England action, we cannot award our British Airways High Flyer to a player. However, we were at Heathrow on Thursday to wave goodbye to the England team. What did we learn?
We learned there's a bit of anger in there, which we would have hoped and expected. There's a big feeling that they need to prove to the fans, to the public, that how good a team that they can be, and they still fully believe that they are not far away. So, from our point of view, they've just got to go show that. It's down to them now. It's over to them. Hopefully they can do that. But for my high flyer of the week, I'm not going to pick any of the players because, as you say, there's no players, but I am going to pick everyone at BA who looked after us because they were lovely. Very difficult, it's a very difficult situation to try and keep everything smooth so the players can get off, but then also look after the idiots that we are. And they did a fantastic job.
Almost the perfect job. If you haven't seen the footage, great insight into English rugby and the state of mind heading to France. Possibly the worst selection of shoes the three of us have ever worn.
Forced upon us.
On planet Earth. Well worth looking just for those on their own. For those of you who haven't had a look at it, head to our social channels to see what we got up to. That being said, our high flyers of the week, as we said, goes to the team at British Airways. Thank you for your support. That is it for this week. It is upon us. Enjoy every single minute. As we said last time out, don't just support your team, support the tournament. Thank you to Ben. Thank you to Shane. Thank you to Gregor, of course, for dialing in as well. We've been the good, the bad, and the rugby in partnership with our very good friends at Continental Tyres. We are a folding pocket production, and this episode was produced by Tom Edwards. See you in France.
Au revoir.
Au revoir for now.